Danielle. Hey, Katie.
Apologies. I need to get my village Zoom password straightened out so
Not
that
to
I can.
worry. You're in very good company. Folks are just
Super
starting to
confused.
join us now.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Frank.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello. I'm Danielle. I'll be taking over for Valerie this evening.
How
Nice
are you,
to meet you,
Danielle?
Danielle. I'm Kate Schlott. I'm the chairperson for the EAC. I guess when everybody's in, we can go around and introduce ourselves and get started. Are we waiting for Stuart?
I don't believe Stuart was planning to join us, so I think you can go ahead, Kate.
Oh, okay, great. So welcome, everyone. This is the Environmental Advisory Council meeting for October 3rd, 2023. I am Kate Schlott. I am chairperson. I will go around the Zoom screen and we'll introduce ourselves individually. So I guess, Katie, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Katie Alberti. I'm on the Environmental Advisory Committee. I'm a retired architect, and this is my way of giving a little bit back to the village.
Nick.
Hi, Nick Tedrow, also a member of the group here, employee at Sustainable Westchester, just doing more environmental related stuff, giving back to the community.
Sade.
Today, lifelong Oxending resident, and I've just always been interested in environmental stuff, so that's why I joined.
I trust you might know Dana, but just in case.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, hi, I'm Dana White. I'm a trustee of Village Bosning, and I'm the liaison to the Environmental Advisory Council.
And Frank. Oh, you're on mute. I can't hear you. Is your volume up? That shouldn't make a difference.
Yeah, Frank, we can see that you're talking, but we can't hear you. Okay, well, while Mr. Budding is getting situated, Danielle, my name is Maddie Zach. I'm the assistant village manager. So very pleased to meet you over Zoom, and looking forward to working together.
So should we start with new business of the board, or should we start off with continuing business at this point? The continuing business, if we do that, that'll actually just be very quick update on the natural resource inventory, and then we can go into new business of the board and focus our attention on discussing the local laws that are up before us. So if everyone's okay with quickly going through the NRI and open space inventory, and then we'll proceed. Yep. Okay. So I just wanted to update everyone and let you know where we are with the NRI learning group. So I'm going to forward a couple of examples to the council of what other towns and municipalities have done for a natural resource inventory. I saw a couple of examples that were provided. One was from Mount Kisco, and they connected their NRI and open space inventory to their comprehensive plan. So I know that in 2021, we released the updated comprehensive plan, so we can use that as part of the guide for the NRI and open space inventory for us. So I'll send you Mount Kisco. I believe Kingston did one as well, but there are a few on the DEC website. So I'm going to send you some reports so we have examples of where we can draw from when we do our report going forward. In connection to that, Valerie actually sent me a grant application for an invasive species grant through the Department of Environmental Conservation, which I think will be really great if we can add that into the NRI discussion, because that would be a wonderful way of us being able to come up with some sort of an outreach program, education and outreach for the community through our NRI to teach them and show them what to look out for what our natural resources are and what kind of things they should keep an eye out for in terms of invasive things coming in going forward. There are three more NRI meetings with the Department of Environmental Conservation. Ingrid Hackel has been leading them and they've been really good. I will send out, if you're interested in attending the next one, that one I believe is October 17th. And then there's another one, November. I'll have to get the dates for November and December, but I believe those will be the last of the year. And then they should be opening up a technical assistance grant through the Department of Environmental Conservation that I'm going to put an application in for to help us get our mapping done. So while I have some geographic information system experience, I'm not well-versed enough in it where I feel like I can carry the project on my own. So this will be a great way for them to actually provide some technical support for Ossining, assuming that we're able to get the grant, to actually put the maps together and come up with a final report that we can then put on the website for the community. So what, do you have any thoughts, comments, things that maybe I should consider as we're moving forward with this? Thoughts?
Kate, this is really great, and I applaud you for taking the initiative to keep it rolling. And what sort of support and input do you want from us? Do you want us to go to the trainings and?
Well, I guess moving forward, part of it is it's going to be a project that's going to take place in 2024. So I'm looking at the expiration dates for some of the council members. So I just want to make sure that if people have the time commitment to help see that through. And as we move forward with the NRI and we're making the maps, if people can help assist in writing up some of the different parts of the maps, the explanations for the maps. So we can have someone who's working on the maps to make the maps and then have assistance with writing the report, because it's going to be, to do a full NRI open space inventory, they're not a small undertaking.
Okay, thanks.
And this is something that's been in discussion and kind of moving slowly along since 2019. So this will be really nice to finally see this through after 4 or 5 years of like planning, and then COVID kind of killed everything for a couple of years, and just slowly picking up the pieces and moving forward with it now.
Kate, this is Maddie. It would be helpful if perhaps you and I sort of discuss, because I want to make sure if in fact we're going to go forward with a grant application, that we just clue in the Board of Trustees. Typically
Yes.
it requires a resolution of support from them, and then certainly if there's any matching funds or staff time that need to be provided. That being said, it sounds like a fantastic initiative. I suspect you'll get support for it. But just to make sure that, I's are dotted, T's crossed and whatnot. And certainly that strengthens the ability for the application to be successful as well.
So then why don't I will follow up with you this week then, because the invasive species grant that Valerie sent, that deadline is November 1st. So that
Okay,
one is a
perfect.
very quick one. So I at least want to make sure we can get that one sorted. The NRI technical grant, that one hasn't officially been released as far as I understand, but once I get more information on that, I will come to you and we can move forward from there.
Sounds excellent. Thank you.
All
And I just
right.
wanted to flag also that our corporation counsel, Stuart Kahan, has joined us as well. So he is here.
Hey, Stuart.
It is a rare pleasure, everybody.
You start.
And your timing is perfect. Unless does anyone else have any comments or thoughts on how to, if there's anything we should add or proceed with the NRI? if anybody wants to attend those meetings, I'm happy to forward the registration information and the Zoom link for that as well. So those are typically held on third Thursday, I believe, of the month, but I'll double check the dates for November and December. All right, if there are no comments on the NRI and open space inventory, I think we can move on to the draft laws for cannabis cultivation and payment in lieu of parking. So I had an opportunity to look over the applications, but what in particular, Valerie had mentioned the local waterfront revitalization program and going through the checklist for that. So if there's anything in particular that we should focus on.
Nothing really flags my interest as anything to really focus on. Obviously the payment in lieu of parking, you know, in terms of the LWRP checklist it's not really applicable to many things on the checklist. Just because it's, you know, there's no new development or anything like that. There's no potential for new development. So, you know, that is pretty straightforward. In terms of the cannabis cultivation, you'll see I don't know if anybody looked over the EAFs, but some things were flagged just because by allowing the cannabis cultivation and growing facilities in those zoning areas, there's potential for new development. So that may flag a couple things in terms of the LWRP checklist, but I don't know if you want to go through it, you know, item by item, or I can look over it briefly and see if I see anything that maybe, but.
I think we should just go through it, I guess, item by item. It'd be quick, but I think I saw Katie had her hand up, so I want to give Katie an opportunity to provide whatever comment she has. I can't hear anything.
Quick question. I just want to confirm that the cannabis law cultivation amendment only is an amendment to the law. There are no actual projects proposed at this time.
Correct, Katie. That's correct.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think it would be good to go through it line by line just to make sure that we are clear and no confusion. I did see a couple of things as well based on what was proposed in the zoning. Absolutely would trigger a few of these. So I think this would be a great chance to go through it.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm sharing the screen right now, which shows the proposed amendment to the code itself. So Danielle, if there's a different document you want me to share, please let me know which one.
This is perfect.
Great.
It might be helpful to pull up the EAF part 2 if you have it. If not,
Right. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Do I need to zoom?
Zoom a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So this is this the 3-page one? Is this the short one or the full?
This is the part 2. Yeah.
Okay, so the short one. Okay. So the
Is this the one we
one.
want?
Yes.
Okay. Wait, am I looking at the right one? I think I'm looking at the wrong one on my screen.
We're looking at the long one, not the 3-page one.
Okay, yes. Okay, now I'm on the right one. Okay.
So do we sort of want to go through the variety of categories? Is that where you'd like to start?
I think we going through the checklist, the LWRP checklist. Do you have that by any chance? I have it in front of me printed out. But I can pull up
Is that part of this document, Daniel?
It is not.
is
The LWRP checklist I also have in front of me, but I can I can send everybody a link real quick if you need me to.
I'm gonna stop screen sharing for a minute. I have it in my email, but it's gonna take me a few moments to get there.
Was the zoning picture on this? Yes, here it is. Okay. Wanted to see what was proposed for the zoning as well, because that will help with a visual for me.
Thank you for your patience. Please continue to bear with us as we bring the email up on the screen.
I'm going through the checklist as we're waiting, and I can definitely see a few that I can say, yes, it will be consistent with certain things, and then others where we might just want to discuss. No, definitely no.
Okay, almost there. One more moment, please. Do we have a completed one, or am I just looking for the blank version?
I did not see a completed one if one was submitted. So I was going over, I guess individually what I would automatically just flag as well if there was others. But I didn't see one that was filled out.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Kate, am I
Sorry.
That's
There's
it,
not a
yes.
completed one, but
showing what you're looking at in front of you?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, awesome.
So starting from number 1, restore, revitalize, and redevelop deteriorated and underutilized waterfront areas for commercial, industrial, cultural, recreational, and other compatible uses. I think this is definitely a yes under that category.
Well, one,
Mhm.
can I raise a caveat on that? If it's including increasing public access to the waterfront, a secured closed facility such as a cannabis growing facility would not increase public access. It would create more of a no-go zone in the area
Why would that be a no-go zone?
because of the security implications. It's obviously not a public facility that people would have access to. On the other hand, something like the wire factory, well, other manufacturing things down there aren't, but is that the direction we want to go with development of the waterfront or not? That's just something that occurred to me, and I'm not going to belabor the point, but it isn't as it would be more secured than a whole lot of other facilities because of the high value of what's being grown in there.
Katie, the other point is it's very unlikely that there will be any of these type of facilities down at the waterfront.
Yeah, true.
You need a lot of space for it, and that's
Right.
not an area with a lot of space.
Right.
So should we say no for that one?
That's my
mean,
instinct,
Mhm.
but that's just my instinct.
But if it's I'm just wondering, because if it's something as we're saying should be industrial, and I'm just thinking like if it would be using underutilized waterfront space, it would serve an industrial and commercial purpose.
I'm coming from the viewpoint that our waterfront is such a precious asset from the standpoint of view corridors and potential recreational and housing access, that while I wouldn't necessarily rule it out completely, I think it would be a less than prime use of the space. I don't know if anyone else shared my thoughts, but I thought it might be something that ought to be raised.
Katie, I think your point is definitely well taken. I am not sure, certainly in the time that I've been, working with this board, if there's really been a thorough conversation of what the LWRP is and what it entails. Kate, I'm not sure if that's something you want to give us like a very brief primer on, or Stuart or Danielle, just basically what an LWRP is for members of the public who may be interested, and then also in Ossining specifically, what area we're talking about here.
I've got a question in the meantime. Stuart said that it is not very likely that the facility would actually be utilized on the forefront, on the shorefront,
Right.
because it is too small. So what sort of area do you actually need to
The regulations for that, Frank, vary depending upon essentially the state has, their regs have different sizes. So, I pulled the regs out, except they're 345 pages long. And but specifically with regard to, I believe, cultivation facilities, there's both indoor and there's outdoor cultivation. We're probably talking about indoor cultivation. And the question is, in terms of size, and also, what particular zoning district. I can let you know what those sizes are. I just don't have them off the tip of my tongue, but they are in the current regulations for the state as to basically the different types of sizes that you can have for for this kind of facility. And again, we're putting this in because we have nothing in the code on it currently. There are no pending applications. We've actually had people making inquiry, but there's nothing pending. But we did want to be prepared if this occurs, because unlike with the cannabis law, where you were able to opt out of either dispensary or basically a cannabis lounge, you can't opt out of having a cultivation facility if you have sufficient property. So if someone does and they come in and it's covered within your zoning district, they would be allowed to build. So that's one of the things you can't opt out. But size-wise, I'm happy to get you all that information. I just don't have it immediately.
So it raises sort of the question, how likely would it be? How much space do we actually have within the village to accommodate such an enterprise? That was what I merely was driving at.
I think in the discussions that we had, it wasn't a lot, but again, I don't want to, wasn't a lot is not, doesn't really answer the question, but that's why they wanted to put this in there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
When we're talking about a cultivation grow facility, by definition here with this, it could be all the things described, or a la carte, like just warehouse and distribution facility for a company, in theory or something.
Nick, I have to go back and check. The cultivation is specifically defined. I believe, though, cultivation can include distribution, but not sale. So in other words, you could not use that as your dispensary, but you could cultivate there, and then you could sell to entities that could then get it to the dispensary. So the state is trying to sort of section of what the different businesses can do. But I do believe that with regard to cultivation, they can, they could be involved in transport and all things like that. But they could not sell directly out of that location.
'Cause I could see if it were just a distribution facility that could feasibly go anywhere in a smaller foot space, then yeah, doing the
Yeah.
full operation of growing and.
Well, we actually, and Maddie, you remember, we actually had someone who was interested in doing something just like that, which is basically you'd order online, you'd go there, and essentially that's what he would be a distribution facility. But it didn't really work out in terms of what he wanted to do and in terms of our code. In terms of a larger distribution facility, again, it depends more on the state regs, which are, on some areas, they're very, very specific. On some, they're sort of nebulous. But on this, what we're looking at is more that someone would be actually cultivating the cannabis for ultimate distribution and then sale at dispensaries, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so you would rather look at some outfit that, I don't know, you would need, let's say, at least 5 acres of land in order to grow a decent volume of plants for factory processing. And
Oh, there you
I
go.
don't know, I like to think that we don't have that space. We're not a rural community. We
No.
haven't got a lot of agricultural land. Let's
I
put it
think that would be for outdoor cultivation though. For indoor cultivation, it doesn't require such a large use of land, as far as I understand. But it does require an intense amount of electricity.
Yeah,
Right.
because they can grow vertically and,
Right.
put a lot of.
Maddie,
different things in
what
those
you
places.
put up here, I think helps because you can
Right.
see this is sort of the license schedule for adult use indoor cultivation, and they have tier 1 and tier 2. To figure out your fee, it's $1,750 for the first 2,500 square feet, plus $450 for every additional 500 square feet up to 5,000 square feet. That's indoor. Tier 2, which is larger, it would be $6,200 for the first 5,000. That goes up to 12,500 square feet. So that's, and you
Right.
can compare that to adult use outdoor cultivation, where you could go as high as 50,000 square feet.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess, if we're looking at, would this be something that would restore, revitalize, or redevelop the area? If that's how we're viewing it, does anyone else have any thoughts on whether you think this would or wouldn't be consistent?
Well, you would view it basically, if it is an indoor activity, you would view it as any other sort of building application, whether that has impact upon what sort of impact it will have upon the environment. I wouldn't, in my opinion, not much different if somebody said, well, we're going to build an apartment building of so many units in a particular area. And the first thing we'll do is, well, what's the impact upon the surrounding land, and what is it doing to wetlands, and what is it doing to existing tree cover and so on. And I don't see much difference.
In the theory that this could exist in the waterfront area, those facilities are going to produce bio waste and, maybe some kind of aromatic,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
use. I don't know, but.
What a
And
nice way to put it, Nick.
right. I respectfully disagree with Frank in this point that an apartment building brings people to the streets. It's associated with positive activity, with the ability to maybe create some retail space. It's also associated with the possibility of creating some green space to service the people who live there, so that it actually opens up the area and makes it more lively. The cannabis growing facility is very inward focused. It's also, I was going to say maybe the footprint is not as big in a residential facility, but it could also be. I keep envisioning a cannabis
Yeah,
facility.
I see
Right.
what you're saying. It is not,
Yeah.
it would not be an expensive activity. It's a secluded activity, which is
Right.
secured on top of that. So it doesn't particularly invite people to go there.
Yeah.
That's what you're driving at, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm overstepping the mandate this committee's been given. I'm kind of interpreting the words revitalize, restore, and redevelop to go beyond simply the natural flora and fauna, but to also talk about the social and social activities and the societal activities in the area. Not that I have anything against growing weed. I'm just thinking it does create a different kind of interaction with the public.
Says it should be viewed as akin to light manufacturing use in terms of this facility. So yeah, whatever that translates to in terms of revitalization and access and stuff for the waterfront, that may be very minimal.
So where do we stand on it being consistent? Is it consistent or is it not consistent? Because it doesn't seem like we're in agreement on whether it's consistent or not.
Well, if it requires more security by nature of activity, then I would say it's not consistent. It would raise issues, and you certainly don't want that to be established at any given place in the community. Yeah.
Ironic considering we have a very secure facility already down there, but it's been there a while.
And that's also operated by the state, and so they're getting their their security from a different source than what this would require. This would require that the villages they're relying on the police department for the village, so that does add a particular extra strain on the police department if they have to have someone there on a regular basis.
I was sort of making a joke, but you have a very good point. Very good point.
Oh no! Oh, but I think, yeah.
I mean, I feel like this is consistent. It's if it were to replace a dilapidated, unused building in theory and put business there, that's redeveloping the area. So, yeah, I don't know.
And I think that's kind of where I'm looking at it too. So we're kind of, yeah. Yes and
That would
no.
be my leaning.
Because I personally, I would prefer to see. What's that? Was that? I heard someone in the back. I think it's my thing. Sorry. I mean, if I'm looking at what's going on at the waterfront, I would rather see something in a space, using a space, rather than watching something, like, as Nick is pointing out, like deteriorating, and which we do have in some cases we do, but we do have a lot of buildings that are also being used. So I don't want to give the impression that the waterfront is like that. So what do we do if we're at in a yes/no situation with the LWRP? I don't think we've ever actually had a situation with
any level of disagreement, really.
Yeah.
Since you appear to be split, I would instead of saying yes, no, Kate, you may just want to put comments as to what basically, let's say you and Nick might be thinking and what, Frank and Katie may be thinking, just so that we, have that prepared and we can go and we can move on from there.
Okay.
Yeah,
How's that?
that would be my recommendation as well.
I think for 1A, we can say that we're definitely, there's no to redevelopment on the Sing Sing prison property. That's not anything that we are.
Right.
So
Can we
No.
say NA? What,
Yeah.
would that be a yes or a no? I don't think it's not applicable.
Right.
Yeah, what you're gonna find, Maddie, is that some of these things on the checklist do not apply at all.
Perfect. Yeah, this is somewhat new to me. I apologize.
No, it's okay. But
Oh,
some
we never actually addressed what the LWRP was.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, for folks who maybe are seeing this for the first time. And like I said, I don't, in the short time that I've been with you all, I don't know if this group has gone through one of these. So it might be a good refresher for folks who have been here a while, but then also helpful for some of our new members.
I don't have like the best explanation of the LWRP in terms of like the academic language, but we've been properties that are west of Route 9. Depending on the type of development that it is, it comes before the Environmental Advisory Council for review to make sure that they are consistent with the checklist for the local waterfront revitalization program. So it's part of New York State's initiative to try to redevelop New York State coastlines, especially along the Hudson River, to be environmentally consistent with particular types of development. So we have been reviewing them when it came to like apartment buildings, big projects, and recently we've been doing, so I guess in this case, this would be another example. We did one recently with the Snowden Avenue. That was I think the last one that we really did. But so we go through the checklist and we make sure that if there's anything that's not applicable, most of the time we haven't really had a situation where everything was applicable. Most of the time, it ends up being that there are lots of things on the list that actually don't pertain to the projects that come before us, because a lot of the checklists really covers stuff that's directly going into the tributaries or really close to the waterfront most of the time. Sometimes we've had stuff that's higher up in elevation that we've looked at because it's west of Route 9. It could potentially carry pollution and deposits down to the waterfront. I'm sure there's other things. If someone else has additional information, that would be helpful.
I think that was pretty spot on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then 1B would be revitalizing the Crescent, the historic business district. If we're looking at the waterfront, I don't think that this would be applicable for this in particular, unless there was something on. I don't see it going up. Am I looking at the right spot? Where on the waterfront would this be happening, or is this for the whole village that we're looking in terms of changing the
Yes.
law? Is this going to be okay?
This is applicable to the planned waterfront development zoning district and the institutional / redevelopment zoning district. So just those two districts.
Oh,
Not the
could I
The IR district is Sing Sing.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
So I was looking at the map over here near North Water Street. So I just wanted to make sure that that's where we are focusing our attention based on what was submitted for the zoning change.
Can I just ask a question? I'm still trying to get my hands around this. So the cannabis cultivation, the only areas where it would be is under consideration would be in those areas, or is that the only area we're reviewing?
That's correct. The zoning amendment is only for those two areas specifically.
Can you point them out?
It wouldn't be affecting any other of the zoning areas.
Okay, and can you point them out specifically which areas?
So that
IR, okay.
yeah, that IR district right there, and I believe it's PW-A. I think there's a couple.
Yeah, right there.
PWS
That's
dash A.
North Water Street.
Okay. And is the IR district, and again, I probably should have known this by now, but is the IR district, is that contiguous with the Sing Sing property?
It is Sing Sing.
Yes.
It is, yeah.
So the proposal is to put cannabis cultivation, so, okay, into the Sing Sing property if it's becomes available?
If at some future date, the state decides to get out of the Sing Sing business, so to speak, and it comes back to the village, that could be, Katie, a possible use in that zoning district. That's what it means. Nothing's anticipated at this point because there's nothing on the horizon of Sing Sing closing. But if that were to happen, that could be a zoning district where you could see this type of industrial use.
All right, and then the PWA is the other one that's where it would be potentially applicable.
Mhm.
Just those
Yes.
two. All right, that does sort of help clarify. Thank you very much. And that's why Kate is saying all these other spaces are not applicable because they're not under consideration. Okay, thank you.
Right, so it's basically just from the Broadway Bridge, which is like at the end of Snowden Avenue, north, along North Water Street, and then a little bit behind. I think the top of this property might be former Brandreth Pill Factory, maybe?
Okay.
This is that neighborhood right here.
Right,
Again, a dumb question.
Patty, that bumps right onto Crawbucky.
Rawbucky,
So
right, is here.
basically the CDD, where you see that's Crawbucky around there, and then you come into the PWA. There's office buildings. It used to be the old Brandreth Pill Factory, and that basically hugs the Metro North tracks and goes down to North Water Street, down to Broadway, which is, if you know where the Virium building is, that's basically at the start there.
And another dumb question, those two are the only two under consideration because they are the only two that already have zoning uses that into which this seems applicable?
Yes.
Okay. That really does help me understand this. Thanks.
When we get to the PI, the payment in lieu, Katie, it will be in some ways the same thing. We're only dealing with, I think there are 3 zoning districts. So we're not dealing with village-wide.
Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Okay.
All right, so I believe we were up to 1B. All right, so I would say that this is, since it's not part of the Crescent or the Historic District, or Main Street, that this would not be applicable for this,
Agreed.
Revitalize downtown waterfront and Lower Snowden industrial area, by encouraging variety of uses while protecting existing water dependent uses, including marinas. This would be based on the fact that it's over there, limited to that area. I would say that this is consistent. The thoughts on that?
Does that little area actually capture Lower Snowden, or is it just above it? I guess it would still affect it if it's adjacent.
It's right up to the border,
Right.
right across that bridge.
Mhm. Right.
It is not applicable, I think, to the Upper Snowden area.
Again,
I don't think-
if it's a district where you're trying to encourage waterfront uses, this would not. But if it's not within that area, then it's, it's a moot point.
Do people really, do they access this area frequently? I never go on that side. So I'm not sure if other people in the community, aside from people who have to be in that area, if they're really utilizing the area all that much. I have no idea.
I mean, the farthest I go over there is like Snowden Park with my daughter, and then the boathouse maybe some
Yeah, where is the boathouse in relation to this?
south of it.
I'm not
Sorry, I
sure
was
if
gonna
it's
try to
showing
do
that.
a street view here.
Oh yeah, that'd be
You
great.
can't even get on the street view of that area. I tried that on Google too. Oh, it's
But
a
at least
little-
like yeah, we can show you like what we're talking about, so we have a visual as we go through this. I think that would be really helpful too. So yeah, so that's North Water Street.
Hold on, almost there. Whoa,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm in the weeds. All right, doing this on a laptop is not for the faint of heart. Okay, so
All right.
So this is like the start of the border of where that zone begins when you go back the way you came, right?
yeah,
Yeah, so this would be the border, the southern border of that district.
Yeah, that intersection.
Mhm.
That's a great park. No one's ever there, I feel like, just as an aside to anybody out there. Go check that park out.
let's try this again. So there's the border. That's the bridge.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, like I said, doing this on a laptop without a mouse is probably not great. So it's basically everything past Virium, which, as Stuart mentioned, is this building right here, the apartment building. And then I made a wrong turn. Does everyone get the idea? Am I just torturing everyone?
No, I get it.
Right.
I have no idea what's over there. I've never been that.
I'm gonna
down
do
this-
this off screen, and then when I finally get to where I'm going, I'll bring.
When you go along, there's that big mansion that used to belong to the Brandreth family, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
I made a left instead of, or I made a right instead of a left. So I'm gonna get back to
Mhm.
Water Street.
So as far
Good
as
idea for a tourism video for Austining is like a voiceover guided tour of Maddie walking us through.
No,
his office.
I would not recommend that. That is not something I'm going to recommend. Okay, here
If
we
you
go.
go back, if you go back to the checklist, if the
Mhm.
area in question in that particular item is south of this zone, then I think in that case, it's a not applicable because it doesn't apply to that area.
Agreed.
So there are a couple of things though that like they're very broad in terms of when they say like the coast for the LWRP. So at least those I think will cover this area. Yeah, I never go that far. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen Google Maps go that far before.
This is Bing. That's why we were suck. I was a sucker. I went on Google. I couldn't get this far, but
Oh, get
Stick with me, guys. Stick with me.
right
You're
Whoa.
intrepid. Yeah.
into the
So
wild.
this is as far as we go, but this is
Okay.
where the Hill factory had been, right?
Yeah. Got
And
demolished.
then there's a series of warehouses here. Stuart may know better than I think Westchester County perhaps has space in one of these. That's an e-waste facility,
Right.
clean something. So then at this this line of trees here, I believe, is the end of the district because now you're in Krawbucky Park.
That's correct, Maggie.
All right. Was that helpful? Can I stop traveling?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Hang on. Stop. Get out of here. Oh, I lost my thing. I'm sorry. Hang on 1 second. There we go. Sorry about that. Still getting used to having a cat. All right.
So 1C, I think, is not applicable because it doesn't apply to that area. Right?
Well, it's the border. It's the very border.
You can make the argument that it could affect the neighboring area, I guess, since it's directly adjacent, but
I would definitely say 1D, 1E are not applicable. But I feel as if 1C could be applicable because of the fact that it does border that very lower Snowden industrial area.
And if it's applicable, how would you say if it's consistent or not?
I guess more business would revitalize it in a way, right?
Yeah. I would say that it is consistent.
Again, I'd be more comfortable saying it's not applicable because if this particular item is actually talking about the downtown waterfront and lower Snowden industrial area, and it isn't lower Snowden, and correct, then it's not really affecting it. I'm thinking. Because am I right in saying it's actually to this north of that?
Technically, the border, from what I'm looking at on the map, the border starts at Westerly and North Water.
Right.
But it's right at where Snowden intersects with that road.
What is the intent of that particular line item? Is it addressing those areas that are south of Broadway?
On the LWRP?
Right, because those are the areas
Some
that
of
have
it does.
marine. Those are the areas that have marine uses.
Yeah, is there a marina right there on that shares that border?
Right.
Then that could be
Right.
more cut and dry.
There, as far as I know, there is. Let me pull up. I feel like I
Well,
should be going to
Westerly-
Bing rather
Westerly
than.
Marina is right there, and then Chatham
Chatham is also nearby.
Yeah.
Right, and then the boat club, and I think the boathouse, I think it's the kind of thing that people feel would benefit the community. As
So
you
People
move
go
the-
get lunch there, right? If they're working, they'll go have drinks.
Yeah,
afterwards.
technically,
I'm saying-
Chatham is in that area of the boundary for the zone that we're looking at.
I mean, I'm all for saying that area north of there, it is appropriate. It's just as you get to the south, when you're talking about revitalizing the downtown waterfront and lower Snowden industrial area by encouraging a variety of uses while protecting existing water dependent uses. I'm a little queasy about that. But the area where the warehouses were, where we bushwhacked with Google Maps, I think wouldn't be a bad spot. It certainly couldn't hurt that area. So it just depends on the definition of what we're answering in this question. I mean, if somebody tried to stick it south of there,
So does that take us back to number one and kind of put you on the yes then for number one, seeing the area now? As a general restore, revitalize, and redevelop.
sure, under commercial. As long as whoever is making the decisions is really cognizant of which areas will benefit from being more and more open and create more and more public access and more lively activities, in which areas are far enough away that it doesn't matter that you've got something that nobody can access. If I'm the only one that thinks 1C should be NA, then I'll back off.
I don't, I'm leaning towards saying that it is consistent mainly because of the fact that it borders Snowden.
If it's only to that one area.
Yeah. I would not say that 1D, that it's applicable there. Definitely not for 1D, and definitely not applicable for 1E.
Three of us are talking. I don't know if the other two people here have an opinion about this or not, but we are spending a decent amount of time on this one. I want to get to other ones.
I think question 2 is really something that I may be motivated by in all of my comments here. Facilitate the siting of water dependent uses and facilities on or adjacent to coastal waters. The Hudson is a tremendous resource. The cannabis facilities really only match up with that area simply because there's empty space. And if Ossining has the opportunity to put water dependent uses that really take advantage of something that's unique in the world, we'd be better off. But so I just want to say that's really what's motivating me. Not that I want to throw a spanner in the works here.
No,
But it definitely,
and I don't know how accessible it would be for that though, because you have to cross the train tracks. There's no way that I can see water develop or activities along the waterfront there as being something that really can be promoted if we can't access it from the roads.
but still, that question item 2 simply asks, does this use promote water dependent activities? And it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. So no, for that one.
No, for that one.
So 2A, protect existing water dependent uses in the downtown waterfront, facilitate the siting of water dependent enhanced. So this would be no for 2A as well.
Either no or not applicable, depending on how you count the borderline, but it doesn't.
I would say no because it's speaking about the waterfront from the whole length. So I would just say no, just to make sure that we're covering the fact that it is addressing the waterfront regardless. Okay. We know that 3 and 4 are not applicable. 5, encourage the location of development in areas where public services and facilities essential to such development are adequate, except where such development has special functional requirements or other characteristics which necessitate its location in other coastal areas.
The question is what are the requirements for public service and facilities to support cannabis growing? I think it was Stuart who said that a large amount of electricity, and it may be available there. I don't know the answers to that.
I mean, that also means that they would have electricity and I guess the required water connection for that area, which I'm assuming that they do because they have those facilities, not the dispensary facilities, but the buildings that are there at the moment. I'm assuming that would meet that requirement, but
it might not simply, and again, maybe Maddie would know better than I do. The warehouses don't require the kind of intensive electric or water that a grow facility of anything, whether they're growing spinach or cannabis or anything.
Indoor cannabis is going to be extremely energy intensive, particularly at a industrial scale.
Yeah, that all sounds right to me. I mean, I'm not sure I'd be able to testify as expert in this category, but it sounds like as different from typical industrial manufacturing use. Manufacturing live things certainly sounds like it would take more energy and more water to me.
So it is possible, but not definitive, that the answer for 5 could be no.
It's possible it could be no. Because we really don't know what they would require at this point and what is actually actively available on the site at this time. I'm curious, has anyone from the village visited a dispensary or a grow site while this was being proposed? I'm just curious if there's been an opportunity to see how other places, how this is operating as we go through the law.
I'm unaware of anyone who has looked
Other
at it.
people from the village, meaning trustees?
Yeah,
have
if anybody,
Is that what you're asking me?
No, I'm not asking if people have gone to like buy. I'm asking if we've contacted any of them to discuss how this kind of operation actually functions, so that as we're going through the law, we have a better understanding of like what the real expectations of this are as we're discussing this the changes.
Not that I know of. I mean, Stuart, I recall that somebody seemed to be expressing interest in the former Filex factory on North Water Street as a possible growing facility or something.
It was, but there's been no one, Kate, has gone to any particular locations. We hear that, people may have stopped in at a dispensary just to see what a dispensary looks like, but in terms of these particular, I am unaware of any view by any either trustee or staff member.
I mean, I don't know how many indoor grow facilities there are in New York State, especially within driving distance of here. None. I mean, I'm not an expert.
I mean, it's a young industry here too. A Google search says a 5,000 square foot indoor facility in Boulder County used 41,800 kilowatt hours in a month per month, which is massive. Average household is 630 a month.
Did they give any details on water use?
Yeah, I mean, I can look at that right now, but just as a general principle, right, you're thinking about replicating the function of what these things would be doing outdoors and with, water. So you're talking about light and controlling the temperature of the atmosphere and, additional pumping in of water now for the indoor. But the water should be more efficient, I would think, for an indoor, because you could grow them vertically and do more water efficient things. But yeah, we'll look a little research into that. I don't have a lot of firsthand knowledge about this, but I have a good friend who's into this, so he talks about it often about it.
So then in that case, I'm going to say, as you were saying, no for number 5. Based on what we were saying about the requirement for energy and for water, that at this point in time, it wouldn't be consistent. So 6, expedite permit procedures in order to facilitate the siting of development activities in suitable locations. I'm not sure if that's applicable in this case. That is. I'm not sure how that applies to this at the moment.
I would agree with you, Kate. I would say it's not applicable.
7, significant coastal fish and wildlife habitats is identified on the coastal area map shall be protected, preserved, and where practical, restored to maintain its viability as habitats. I'm going to say that this is most likely not consistent. This would not be something that is working to restore the habitats of the area. Then 7A, designated coastal habitat at the Croton River. Does this intersect with the Croton River? I don't think so.
So
Does it? What is that river that's right above it? There is a stream that looks like it is, at least on the map that's on the, it looks like that cuts through Crawbucky actually. But that does not look like the Croton River. No. No. So I'm gonna say that it is not applicable for this project or for this LWRP. Okay. 7B, locally important coastal wildlife habitat at Crawbucky Nature Preserve area shall be protected and preserved so as to maintain its viability as a habitat. So this border goes right up to, for the area goes right up to Crawbucky.
this is where I will leave it up to those of you like Kate who are more cognizant of natural resource issues to determine whether it could be built, you know, that if this area could have a more development and not affect Crawbucky, could, whatever.
I don't think this is applicable for Crawbucky.
It could be
It's not really
protected.
going to, it can be protected, but I don't know if this is something that's going to be part of the actual maintaining of it as a viable habitat. It does lie outside of the area of it's right up to the border of where Crawbucky is, but as far as like what contributions it will make to that area as a habitat, I'm not sure if this would be an applicable, if this would be consistent.
And you don't see it degrading the habitat. Probably because it's already developed.
Yeah, the area is already developed. It would be most likely in an enclosed, assuming this is indoor, it would be an enclosed area and they shouldn't have to push into, they wouldn't be able to anyway, based on where the border is. They shouldn't be operating outside of that. As far as I understand, that zoning area, so Crawbucky wouldn't be up for pushing into that area with this. But because it is right adjacent to it, you know, there could be, you know, as Nick pointed out before with the odor, that could be something that ends up infiltrating the area.
To the extent that it couldn't be, what's the word I want? Ameliorated is a better word. I don't know.
It's an then I guess I would say if it's not no, then I would say for this one that it's not out. Okay, number 8, protect fish and wildlife resources in the coastal area from the introduction of hazardous waste and other pollutants which bioaccumulate in the food chain or cause significant sublethal or lethal effects on those resources. I don't think this is applicable.
I think it'll come down to how a project is executed.
Mhm.
And I think that with appropriate oversight from us, when a project's proposed, from us and the planning and zoning.
I gotta go
building
get Don't run. Sorry.
My thing is probably yes.
Yes, that it's consistent.
It could be.
Okay. Yeah, because
Does
this
anybody
isn't
else-
something that's going to bioaccumulate into the food chain and cause the type of damage or concerns that when we are referring to something that's going to bioaccumulate, it's not going to behave in that same way. It's not going to be like a volatile organic compound like what we are concerned with from other industrial uses on the waterfront. At least that's what
Well,
I'm. Mhm.
You don't know. I mean, they could be using pesticides and other things, but I think that could be
Sure.
evaluated when an actual project is proposed. Because we get another chance at this. We get a chance at looking at the actual projects.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree on that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I agree that most of these, especially environmentally related, are probably going to be not applicable just because we're talking about a zoning amendment and not actual development. And I agree that we can go back and assess actual development for the more environmental related factors.
Yeah, because it's certainly, those facilities are certainly messy emissions wise and otherwise. So the conceptual application of this list has been a little tricky for me too, just as a law versus a, theoretical project.
Right. Yeah. So expanding recreational use of fish and wildlife resources, this would not be consistent with number 9.
Okay.
This would also not be consistent with number 10. So we wouldn't be developing commercial shellfish resources or anything like that. This wouldn't be dealing with seafood products. I almost want to argue that's not applicable. But I'll say no on that one.
Mhm.
I know 11, 12, and 13 are not applicable. Prevent erosion from filled land west of the railroad tracks. This is not, I would say no or not applicable for number 13A. Activities and development, including construction or reconstruction of erosion protection structures. I would say that this is not applicable. That's 14. 15, mining, excavation, or dredging. I'd say this is most likely not applicable. 16 is not, what?
I was gonna say, once the project is proposed, these would have to be reviewed for compliance, but right now, who knows?
Right. Let's see, so 16 is not applicable. 17, whenever possible, use non-structural measures to minimize damage to natural resources and property from flooding and erosion. That I think that's something that we would have to look at on, again, like, unless a project comes before us, I'm not sure at this point, looking at the law, if this would be applicable for the law side of it, but I think this would be applicable if a facility actually wanted to open up and that had to be addressed. Number 18, safeguard vital economic, social, and environmental interests of the state and its citizens. Proposed major actions in the coastal area must give full consideration to those interests and to the safeguards which the state has established to protect valuable coastal resource areas. That's a would that be consistent or not applicable?
One of those two.
I'm thinking, again, until we see the product, until we see the proposed.
You assume the law would protect those interests, whatever goes on the book, so it would therefore be
Yeah.
consistent.
Whatever project happens.
But then, yeah, you assess it on a project basis. After.
So for purposes of the law, though, would we say that it is consistent? Because this would be assuming in the interest of the state and bringing in revenue. At least the law would be consistent.
This is where it starts to get, again, this is just off the top of my mind, gets kind of ambiguous because it's an ambiguous statement. Social environmental interests of the state and of its citizens must give full consideration to those interests of the state and its citizens and the safeguards to which the state has established to protect valuable coastal resources.
I think the law would inherently require that we give full consideration to those things by then having it come to us when a project did exist for a LWRP review, and therefore it would satisfy that. You know, we
So
would
it could, if
So
properly
the
designed,
theory of the law, yes, would,
Right.
yes.
if properly designed, could comply. That in and of itself, it doesn't violate it. I guess that makes sense.
And we already know, because if a project were to happen here under this prospective law, then it would come to us for this, for that question 18 to be asked again about the specific project. And we would, you know, determine its viability on any project thereafter.
So the two options are, one is to say not applicable, or to say, yes, it's consistent, but we won't know it's consistent until we see it. I don't know, Stuart, does this make any sense?
Hang on a sec. Yeah, it does, Katie. Yeah. And I'm going to just say something. I apologize for this, but I notice it is 8:20. We are halfway through this one and we still have another one to go. So I'm going to ask folks to hopefully quicken it a little bit, but let me just help you with 18. The
Okay.
explanation of the policy is as follows. Proposed major actions may be undertaken in the coastal area if they will not significantly impair valuable coastal waters and resources, thus frustrating the achievement of the purposes of the safeguards which the state has established to protect the waters and resources. Proposed actions must take into account the social, economic, and environmental interests of the state and its citizens in such matters that would affect natural resources, water levels and flows, shoreline damage, hydroelectric power generation, and recreation. I don't know, I'm reading this, I don't know if you folks actually have this document, and I apologize, Kate, I don't know if you do, which is the actual Village of Ossining LWRP, which
I
is,
do have it, and
it's
it's
123 pages.
it's,
And
I would say it's long.
it lists every single one of the things you guys are talking about with all the explanations of the policies. So, you know, it may be that at this point, you know, you could say yes on 18, you could say it's not applicable, or, you know, until you actually see a plan, you know, because again, as has been mentioned, this is not for a specific plan. It's more on a zoning text as to what could occur there. But of course, there's nothing, you know, there's nothing before a planning board or a zoning board yet. So there's nothing that's coming to you folks yet with regard to a specific grow facility.
Okay. So just for the purposes of having something on a lot of moving along, I would say yes, it is consistent, but it would have to be viewed on a case-by-case basis for the individual projects. 19, I would say is not applicable for this.
Well, I think 19, while it would not necessarily rule out a project, it is definitely not consistent with that. It says priorities should be given to public beaches, boating facilities, fishing areas, and waterfront parks. But that doesn't, you know, just to be honest about what we're looking at.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that the whole thing is a bad idea, but you know what
So
you're
then-
getting into.
Yeah. So it's not it's not consistent for number 19.
Yeah, I would say it's not consistent.
I mean, in theory, a project they could offer to like build some park as part of their proposal, you know, right next to it or something. So, I mean, maybe it's just, maybe everything's NA, I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
but I mean, on the face of it, it's
Yeah,
not.
no, sure.
I would say 19A is not applicable. It is not in the space of Lewis Angle Park or and it will not prohibit access to Sparta or Crawbucky.
Will increase progress to other things shall not be limited to the least attention of that portion of the public land. which will be-
Possibly access to the future development, creating property should not be eliminated through release. I would say that 19B is not applicable. 19C, that is not applicable. Nineteen D. Um, 19D, is that, I don't know if that would be applicable for this. This is specifically referencing the Riverfront Development District.
Mhm.
Would this even affect any pedestrian access anywhere? Is there anything like that? Those are just roads that lead all the way down that, right?
Yeah,
It could, it just means that if a project is put in that area, it needs to take this into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
There's no access between the rail and the shoreline at all.
19E. This is non-applicable.
Right.
Looks like 20 is not applicable.
Mhm.
20A is not applicable.
Probably most to them to whenever change occurs for environmental helping my development. Yeah, it could be worked out within a particular project.
Okay, water dependent, water enhanced recreation should be encouraged. I would say this is not applicable because we do not have, as Frank was just pointing out, there's no
Yeah,
access
there's no
to the
access.
waterfront.
No, that's right.
22 is not applicable. Uh, 22A, if the tap-in facility of Sing Sing is released for development, some waterfront recreational facilities must be developed as part of the project. At this time, because one, that most likely will not be happening anytime in the near future, but if that does happen, I don't know if this would be applicable to what we're discussing at this point, because this is not actually a project that's before us.
Would the law state that though? Could the law itself be, or the zoning requirement include that? Or could it even?
Well, this checklist is still applicable even if the zoning changes.
Sure.
We would be reviewing projects based on the environmental, this checklist. And it's, so it's.
I guess we're contemplating the specific law, right? So is this proposed change going to release? I got, never mind. Yeah, okay. Forgive
So
me.
theoretically, if the state moved everybody someplace else and opened this up, and a cultivation facility wanted to go down there, they would not be able to take up the whole space and block access. That's what this is saying. But we don't know
Yeah.
if that's gonna happen.
Never mind.
I guess I would say 22A is not applicable at this time. 23, I would say it is not consistent. 24 is not applicable. 25, it is not, I don't think this would be applicable for 25. Protect, restore, enhance natural man-made resources which are not identified as being statewide significance, but will contribute to the overall scenic quality of the coastal area. So I would say that that is not, most likely not consistent. 25A, I would say, is not applicable. And neither is 25B. 26, 27, and 28 are not applicable. Okay, 30, municipal, industrial, and commercial discharge of pollutants included but not limited to toxic and hazardous substance into coastal waters will conform to state and national water quality standards. This sounds like something that would be required on if we were reviewing a project. So at this point, I guess it would this would be not applicable at this moment in time, but could be in the future.
Yes.
Certainly.
I think all of our not applicables are, or most of them are under the unstated messages at present, not till the project is actually proposed.
Okay. State coastal area policies and management objectives of approved local waterfront revitalization programs will be considered while reviewing coastal water classifications and while modifying water quality standards. However, those waters already overburdened with contaminants will be recognized as being a development restraint. I don't know if that's applicable to this.
One question that really should be evaluated is whether, maybe not us, maybe by the board, whether the sewage facilities in these two zones are adequate to deal with any waste effluent coming out of the two facilities.
Well, that would be something, I guess, when a project also comes before us, they would have to address that. I mean, the
Right.
project,
Well,
yeah.
would it also be, though, something to think about in terms of the question about if there's adequate utility service to the area?
All of that would come out on an individual
Okay,
evaluation of a particular plan, Katie, because that's part of the, that's something that the DPW engineer would look at. We would have our own engineers and they would have to, and if in fact some infrastructure work was required of the applicant, that might be something they would have to do in order to get their approvals.
okay.
So, for purposes of this, I would say not applicable at this time.
Okay.
32 is not applicable. 33, best management practices to ensure control of stormwater runoff. And this is something that would have to be done by individual applicants. So I would say for this, not applicable. 34, discharge of waste materials into coastal waters from vessels. This would not be applicable at this time, or there are no vessels that we would have. Any new or expanded marinas, this is not applicable. So number 34A, I don't think is applicable. 35 is not applicable. 36,
Same.
not applicable. Yep. 37. Okay, best management practices will be utilized to minimize non-point discharge of excess nutrients, organics, and eroded soil into coastal waters. Again, this is, I would say, not applicable. This would be something that would have to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. 38 would be, I would say, not applicable, because again, case-by-case basis. Transport, storage, treatment, and disposal of solid waste, and particularly hazardous waste with coastal areas to be conducted in a manner to protect groundwater and surface water supplies, significant fish and wildlife habitats, recreation, and important agricultural lands and scenic resources. Again, this would be stuff that individual projects I think would have to bring before us and have that reviewed to make sure that they're consistent. So purposes for today, I don't know if that would be applicable for this. Effluent discharge from major stream electric generating and industrial facilities into coastal waters will not be unduly injurious to fish and wildlife and shall conform to state water quality standards. We would need to review the projects for that. So I would say 40 for the purposes of this is not applicable. Uh, 41, I would say, is consistent. Land use or development in the coastal area will not cause national or state air quality standards to be violated. There is no getting around it. There will be an odor if there is cultivation. So that's something I think individual applicants would have to address as part of their proposals. So, because I would say there could potentially be issues with odor, I would say it's either not consistent or not applicable at this time.
Now, is odor equivalent and necessarily equivalent to air quality standards?
Yeah, I have no idea what the national or state air quality
Right.
standards mean.
Yeah, I suspect the odor that comes off might be noxious, but I don't think it would have particulate or ozone or those elements that violate air quality standards. But it's something that could be evaluated on a. It's something that could be ameliorated by using scrubbers if it were the case. So that could be, again, cause for really careful review of a project. But it probably as
I
much
would
as
agree.
the other effluent things. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that. It would be a project by project basis. 42, coastal management policies will be considered if the state reclassifies land areas pursuant to the Prevention of Significant Deterioration Qualities and Federal Clean Air Act. I don't think that is applicable. Land use or development, coastal areas may not generate significant amount of acid rains, not applicable.
I'm thinking this might even be a yes, because I can't see acid rain, nitrates and sulfates coming out of this sort of facility.
Okay.
Using my little bit of chemistry that I know, and if somebody knows more and says yes, it would, I'll stand corrected. But I think actually this might be a yes.
Okay. I'll say that. I would say yes. And then 44, preserve and protect tidal and freshwater wetlands and preserve the benefits derived from these areas. I would say either yes or not applicable. And that also would be something that would have to be done if there's more development that's being considered in that area for individual projects. That would be something an individual applicant would have to address within their application.
Yeah, I would make that a yes.
All right. I would agree with that. I think, yes, we are done with that one.
And can we send along comments saying that in many cases, we made it not applicable because it can't be reviewed until till the actual project is proposed?
You're certainly not prohibited from doing that because, I mean,
Yeah.
that's absolutely fine. You can certainly say that in any covering letter to the Board of Trustees that you want. That's fine.
Okay.
Clarification.
Folks,
Any
what was the
project like this,
decision on,
oh, sorry,
sorry,
Maddie.
what was the
Go ahead,
decision
Maddie.
on 1C? The downtown waterfront and lower Snowden. I don't think there was ever a definitive conclusion on how you all wanted that to be marked.
I put it down as being consistent.
Consistent.
Okay.
Okey doke.
Okay.
I think it's something safe to, if the project ever like this ever came to us, hopefully they'll be encouraged or compelled to have some renewable generation on site to power their facility. And
Yeah. Yeah.
all the gambit of things we don't have to say. But.
Yeah, especially because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the moratorium on gas lines is still in effect. So they would have to come up with some other way of providing energy. Okay, so the next on the agenda, I believe, is there anything else that's needed for this, or was it just the LWRP review?
Your review should be, that's what you want. We'll get it over to the Board of Trustees so they can have it in advance of their hearing on the 18th of October.
18th of October, okay.
Yes.
All right, so I will write up any concerns that we might have in addition to what's in the LWRP. I will put together a letter for the Board of Trustees and get that to them. So if there's anything in particular that anyone from the EAC would like to have addressed in that, please send me an email with your concerns noted and I will put it in. Okay, next up we have the draft for local law for payment in lieu of parking. Okay.
So if folks haven't gotten a chance to review this, I can sort of give a very top line overview of basically what's being proposed. Currently, the planning board is allowed in certain zoning districts to give what's called a parking waiver. So if, for example, someone in one of those zoning districts wants to develop a movie theater and the zoning code says that for based on the number of seats, the number of employees, the nature of the business, the hours of operation, so on and so forth, that 50 parking spaces be required in order for that building to be approved. And the planning board, gets an application before them and the person says, I'm not able to, or the developer says, I'm not able to provide 50 parking spaces. In fact, I can provide 0 parking spaces. So long as the applicant meets all the criteria from the planning board, the code reads that the planning board shall waive that parking requirement. Basically, what the village board is proposing is that in most situations, instead of offering what is basically a waiver, that now the applicant would be able to, instead of just waiving the number of spaces outright, actually pay into a fund to help the village to pay for parking somewhere else in that or a neighboring zoning district. So basically, parking that would, certainly come, in the case of the multimodal transportation hub, which is one of the village's DRI projects, a project such as that would be considered a bit differently, but basically this funding would be going towards maintaining, or in some cases, building additional parking off-site. Whereas typically right now, the developer would just be able to have those spaces waived. So happy to answer any questions, or Danielle, if there's anything additional that you wanted to add. Or Stuart, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I had to run and get my laptop charger while you're saying. What's the condition for the waiver right now, as it's currently written? Did you say?
Right now, the conditions are, I'm not sure if it's highlighted.
I mean, it's not necessarily pertinent to us considering the new proposal.
Hang on, Maddie,
I
I can pull the chat, I can pull it out. I have the code here. So let me just look at it quickly. 270-30, I think it's 812.
Yeah, I don't need to mire us in that detail. I was just.
No, well, the important thing is this. Currently, in these 3 zoning districts, if the elements are met, the planning board must grant the waiver. Must grant the waiver. It's not discretionary. And so the idea was to try to create a circumstance where, it would no longer be mandatory. The 4 elements, Nick, are currently that the change is from one permitted or conditional use in the district to another permitted or conditional use. The proposal does not involve construction of a new building or alteration or additions to an existing building, which would result in an increase in gross floor area, taking away from existing off-street parking. The proposal does not result in the loss of existing off-street parking, and the new use shall continue to have access to any parking spaces which the existing use in the same location was granted access. So if those elements are met, then the planning board had to grant the variance in these 3 zoning districts. If those were not granted, the applicant could still seek what's called an area variance for parking, but the advantage to the applicant is if they could fit within these 4, he gets it regardless of the number of spaces that he needs. In terms of a waiver, he is granted the waiver, and we wanted to pull back on that. Again, in these 3 districts only.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate that. Stuart.
Sure.
Very useful.
VC is Village Center, SPN
Station Plaza North.
Station Plaza North, and NC2 was
Neighborhood Center.
Neighbor Center. Okay.
Thank you. I have 2 of those off the top of my head.
Okay, so
Okay,
you
so
see here right in the
VC.
middle of the screen.
That's
So
Brandreth
VC,
and Gauntlet. Oh, sorry, I thought I was on mute. Sorry.
no, you're fine. So VC is pretty much the Main Street, the upper Main Street area, carries a little bit across Route 9. You can see over here. NC2 indicates sort of a small area. Stuart, please tell me if I'm getting this wrong. That is east of Route 9, in the neighborhood of like Denny Street, so sort of up behind the library. And then the third is Station Plaza North, which follow
Right below PWB. So it's that small little area coming off of Secor Road. Secor and Main.
And again, those are the same 3 zoning districts that currently, applicants could come before the planning board and seek a waiver. So no changes to the zoning district, only what the planning board has power to make happen with regards to parking in those same districts.
Okay.
It sounds like the reasoning behind this is that a developer landlord who's increasing the usage of their property is obtaining a good by getting the waiver for parking, because that parking is then going to be provided from other spots that other people could be using. And by asking them to pay in lieu of parking, they're creating the opportunity for the village to satisfy some of those needs in other ways.
That, Katie, that's correct, because the money goes into essentially an escrow fund, which would be used and has about 8 or 9 different specific uses. But the money is also first in, first out. So basically, the village would have to use that money within 10 years. Otherwise, it goes back to the developer. The exact amount of the payment in lieu per parking space is to be decided by the board. That's going to be part of their fee schedule. So I haven't decided that part yet, and it's not actually part of this part of the code, but that is something that will follow shortly after, this would be implemented.
And those fees apply to those zones only.
Only in those 3 zones, Nick, could you actually do a payment in lieu of parking. You will not be able to do that anywhere else.
But I guess the fees sorry, you might have covered this already. Those fees
That's
collected
okay.
could only be reinvested in those zones.
No, actually, it could be used for any, Maddie, if you can bring the code up for a sec. At the very end of the proposed code change, there are if you go scroll to the very end, Maddie. Okay, there we go. Nick, if you see where it says on the screen, it says use of funds.
Yeah.
The monies can be used for all these different things. It need not be within those 3 zones. So if it's a construction of a parking facility, operation and maintenance of the parking facilities, transportation and mobility, demand management programs, any of these A through I, that's what the money can be used for. And so, but it's not explicit that it has to be within those 3 zones. If we found another zone where we wanted to do some parking measures or things like that, or transportation measures, the money could go to that as well.
So would we be considering, for the purposes of this, the impact of the law as a fee towards these developers and those projects, or additionally, or separately, this like potential use of the funds in a more macro sense of it could be anywhere within the LWRP?
I think for purposes of this, because the use of funds, I think, is a broader thing, I would say at this point, it would be more to the 3 zoning districts that you're talking about, because those are the ones that, unless you're within those zoning districts, you have no ability to be in the PILOP anyway.
Right.
So this really should be looked at in terms of VCSPN and NC2, in terms of the impact, in terms of the LWRP.
So I guess we're assessing the impact of taking money from developers against the criteria of the.
Right. Well, what you're looking at is, instead of basically now, and in a sense, it's following what Katie said. Currently, we have to give them a waiver regardless of the number of spaces, with
Sure.
no recompense back to the village.
Right. Yeah.
This would be different. And it is something, and Maddie has done a lot on this. This is seen in a lot of municipalities where they basically have this type of program to set it up. But again, we limited it to these 3 because these are the 3 where there currently is a mandatory waiver if the requirements are met.
Okay.
I can see-
Sorry, I'm trying to get my head around the part, or how we do an assessment of the criteria, what we're assessing so specifically.
Sure.
You can see a very interesting outcome of this in terms of, the environmental impact in the downtown area. Because besides providing parking spaces, it also allows transportation mobility improvements, transportation demand management. It could help support non-automobile transit within the village, which could eliminate miles driven and reduce the use of fossil fuels for transportation. So it kind of opens up some other possibilities. And I don't know if that was first on the mind of the village, when this was written, but it opens up possibilities, and the denser downtown areas really lend themselves to be places to encourage people who choose not to have cars and need other ways to get around. So that's kind of one positive outcome of this that affects the environment.
Katie, I would say that that assessment is spot on, but there's actually even more to it than that. So while certainly, depending on the size of a development, it is practical and in some cases necessary to have a small amount of parking on site, be it for a residential development or for a business or an office or something of that nature. But something that we're also trying to promote through this program is not only the alternative mobility support, but also consolidated or shared parking opportunities. So for example, if you're an office and most of your employees are there between 9 o'clock and 5 o'clock, your parking lot sits vacant between 5 o'clock and 9 o'clock. You have a restaurant across the street who most of their people get there at 5 o'clock and then are out of the building before midnight. Requiring both of those businesses to construct their own parking lots may be less practical than offering the potential for, a shared municipal lot that would, serve both interests, both businesses with the same number of parking spots. So like I said, I think what you mentioned about, alternative mobility is true, but this also opens up some opportunity for the village to invest in more of that shared parking and less of every single business, contributing their own parking to the downtown.
Which also opens the possibility for more green space, even if it's just tiny pocket parks. If they're not covered with cars, you can put trees there.
Also true.
And would this bring consistency with how other zones are treated, or is this is novel? It sounds like to.
The novelty is that you're going to have the payment in lieu. And there's also an involvement here with the Board of Trustees, because the Board of Trustees will get involved should there be an application for payment in lieu of parking, where it sort of equalizes with other districts is that you will no longer have the ability to essentially just get your waiver. What we've basically done, Nick, is we've taken the waiver out. These were the only 3 districts that had a waiver. That waiver will not exist any longer.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so we should go through the checklist for this and see what is consistent and what is not. Were there anything that I guess stood out immediately as not being applicable? I know we have the ones that are already filled in, but I would say 1A for sure is not applicable. Number 1, because of the Station Plaza North being within the waterfront area, that would be applicable. That would be yes, it's consistent.
Yes.
Okay, so 1 is consistent, yes. 1A is not applicable. 1B, yes. 1C, it is not applicable. The pen is breaking. 1D is not applicable. 1E is not applicable. 2 is not applicable. 2A, this would not be applicable. Yes?
In a sense, it could be because if you're not covering everything with parking, you are adding the possibility for other use.
Okay.
So I would say it's consistent. I think it's encouraging other uses.
Okay. Well, then 2A, we could say yes. We know that 3 and 4 are not applicable. The 5,
Not applicable.
not applicable. Number 6. Okay, number 6, that would be, so in this case, I guess I would, based on what you were saying, this is proposed to do, that this would be consistent for number 6.
I don't think so.
No?
Primarily because it's only dealing with one small part of the permitting process. And it doesn't actually expedite anything, it just adds a different requirement.
Okay. So should we say
Mm.
not consistent?
I'd say not applicable,
Not applicable. Okay.
right?
I would just leave a comment with what Katie said regarding that also, just so we have note of that. Because I was kind of on the fence with this one too. So
Is
Mhm.
that the right note? It's only one stage in the permit process. Is that right, Katie?
Yeah.
Great. And then Kate, I think I missed you on number 1. I apologize.
Number 1, we said yes is consistent.
Consistent. Okay. Thank you.
Number 7, this would be not applicable. Number 7A is not applicable. 7B is not applicable. 8 is not applicable. Same with number 9. 10 as well, not applicable. Let's jump ahead to 13A. Not applicable.
Mhm.
14 is not applicable, as well as 15. Would any of the funds be used for any kind of erosion protection structures? Or
No,
that it would just be specifically for transportation? Or, so no, okay.
it would mean it, because could it, if it was part of, maybe, but it's really more transportation oriented than erosion oriented.
Okay,
Yeah, water
Um,
erosion's not on that list that Stuart flashed, I don't think so.
okay. So then 17 would also not be applicable.
Right.
18. Safeguard vital economic, social, environmental interests of the state and its citizens. Would this be applicable, or would this be, because I'm kind of wondering if we're doing something like a payment in lieu of parking, that based on what we were discussing, that this could be something that would be part of the social interests of.
It could, depending on the type
But
of
it's
program that they go for, sure.
Okay.
So I would say 18 is yes. And as Stuart was saying, it's, I guess, program dependent.
Mhm.
19 would be non-applicable. 19A would be not applicable. 19B as well. 19C, could that be something that it would be consistent with? Would we be able to use the funds to help maintain bridges and streets, or would it just be for parking?
Well, it's broader, Katie, than just parking, because it's overall transportation.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think you could get away with a yes here without having any issues.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Then
it
I would
improves
say
on the
yes.
law, which is a waiver now, so if anything, it makes it better, right? So that should be consistent with the versus the existing standard on those fronts.
19D.
Not applicable.
Not applicable, okay.
Yeah,
Same with 19E.
not applicable.
Not applicable, yeah.
Mm.
20 as well is not applicable. 22, 20A is not applicable. 21 is not applicable. 22 and 22A are not applicable. 23 as well. Skip to 25. Not applicable. 25A would also not applicable. Same for 25B. You can skip to 30. Not applicable.
Sorry, Kate, we missed 27.
27. Oh, whoa.
I think it's not applicable, but
Not
Yes,
applicable.
Not
I saw
applicable.
those NAs there and I missed it.
you got excited. I know.
Let's see. 31 would be not applicable. 33, 34, 34A, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41. Wait, definitely through 40. So 33 through 40, for sure, I would say are not applicable.
Okay.
41, I'm curious about that one and what people think on that one.
Don't think it would have an effect one way or the other,
Okay,
because simply not granting the waiver doesn't either doesn't necessarily add or subtract from the amount of vehicular emissions. It could conceivably reduce them, but mostly it's moving them someplace else for the time being.
okay. So not applicable for 41.
That's my
Uh,
thought.
Okay. 42 as well. 43 and 44. That one was much quicker and easier than the other one.
Let's go back then.
Oh no. I think we've beat the horse enough on that one.
We'll have another one for you in a few weeks, so don't worry.
Oh,
Oh, I can't wait.
Now we know how to do it.
Yep.
You
Yeah, I think
know,
this was
a
actually
lot
the
of-
first time. What was that?
I was gonna say, a lot of these, the good things that we said not applicable, given the right projects, sort of like the other one, given the right projects, this could actually be really positive. But you won't know until the village decides what they want to do with the money. But getting the money is a good thing.
I'm sure it's nothing but positive versus a waiver, right?
Yeah,
Gotta be right. We'll see what the trustees
Unless you're
cook up, I
the-
guess.
yeah. If you're a developer, you might not be so happy, but
Well, you
Well,
gotta,
yeah.
you gotta price it in the sweet spot so that
Right.
so that you don't disincentivize development, because if you make it too expensive,
Yeah.
they're just not gonna come because, they can't otherwise provide parking, because we do have, places around here where we just, you can't, there's no available parking. 200 Main Street is a prime example. If anyone were to go in there, I mean, there's no parking at the building itself. So you got to see,
Absolutely.
and that's something the board's going to discuss. And that's one of the reasons we did not include that in the statute. We had we had internal discussions on that, but I like to keep the fees in the statute, because if you do, and then you change the fee, then you got to change the law. And we just wanted to get this done, move it forward, and then go on to the next steps.
Right.
Well, thank you all.
I'm-
The public hearing, by the way, on these two will be on the 18th of October before the Board of
Okay.
Trustees. Both have already received reviews by the planning board. Planning board had, if I remember, Maddie, they had no comments with regard to cannabis, and they had a few comments with regard to the payment in lieu. Those changes have in fact been incorporated into the draft that you now have. So,
Right. Thank you, Stuart.
yep.
Great. I just got your email, Maddie. Those are the. Okay, wonderful. I'll take a look at these, and I'll write up just a general letter that we can also submit to the board before the October 18th meeting. So if there's any additional comments for this one as well, if anybody has any, get those to me in the next week or so, and I can put together a letter for these two drafts. Are there any other, that is actually the end for our agenda. Are there any comments or questions before we close out the meeting tonight? Okay, so then Maddie, I will follow up with you this week about the two grant applications that were mentioned earlier, the natural resource assistance grant for when that opens up, and I'll follow up with you about the invasive species grant that Valerie had forwarded to me for a possibility of applying to.
Sounds excellent.
All right.
Thank you.
If there are no other comments or questions, then I believe we are adjourned for the evening, and I will see everyone in a month.
Thank you
Thanks
for your
everyone
leadership.
for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
great meeting you all.
Bye-bye.
Nice to
Bye.
meet you. Enjoy the rest of
everyone.
your week.
Thanks, Danielle. Thanks, Stuart.
Bye.
Bye-bye.